I apologize for troubling you to come here, but we have something we wanted to show you right away. This is it. We've replicated the aura of that boy you brought in. It bears no resemblance to anything we've ever seen. Something to do with his contact with number 26, or it might...
Have you begun the comparison with the Akira pattern?
We're just about ready now. This is only a projection based on our collective data. It's difficult to compare, but the aura of this boy might be a clue towards untangling the mystery of Akira.
Good. Keep at it.
Hey, panelists, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
I'm Lara.
And I'm Rob.
And it's been a long time since we actually had a podcast come out. So I want to thank everybody for coming back and listening to us. This episode of the podcast, we're going to be covering Akira from 1988, which is a Japanese animated film. It's highly regarded. A lot of people love it. I know that Rob loves it. I love it. And Lara loves it. It's one of those strange movies that came out of nowhere by 1988. And it pretty much stems from the manga element that was out there in Japan from manga comics. I'm not sure exactly. You guys could correct me or not. This was a manga comic at one point, correct?
Yes.
Correct. As a matter of fact, it's here's the interesting thing about it. It's a manga that somehow was finished after the movie came out.
After.
Yeah. So so if you think about it, so the manga started, then they somehow, halfway through they started doing the movie, and then somehow the movie influenced the ending of the manga.
Oh, that's crazy. When did the manga complete? When was
I think it was in 1990, 91, something like that.
Interesting. Yeah. And it premiered in its release date actually was July 16, 1988. The budget was 700 million yen, which boils down to $5.7 million. And the box office was 49 million on the take. So it didn't do well in comparison to what we would say in the United States, but it has grown a cult following over the years, and a lot of people do enjoy it. It was distributed by Toho, which a lot of you know. I'm a huge Godzilla fan, but Toho is the film company that had distributed this film and created this film. There's a ton of people on here that I would probably destroy their names if I had gone through them, whether it be produced by, but it's based upon Akira by Katsuhiro Otomo. And it's his comic through manga, like Rob had just mentioned, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo himself, and screened by Katsuhiro Otomo and Izu Hashimoto. Yeah, like I said, I'm destroying these names. Kind of like when Daphne and I were doing Battle Royale for Adrenaline Cinema podcast. We just kept going on and on and on. But yeah, it's a true Japanese film. I recently watched it twice in the dubbed version. I watched it once before I watched it twice on the dubbed version, but I watched it once with the the subtitles. There is a differentiation between the text and the dialogue that we get from the English version that's dubbed. So keep that in mind when you watch it. So choose your path, as I would say. Which do you choose, the blue pill or the red pill? Have fun with that. That you could find it on 4K Blu-ray and regular Blu-ray, because they reissued these within the past year. If you could find the media content that's out there. Because, Rob, as you and I both are aware and are fans of physical media is going away.
Well, in some places, you can still get it on Amazon. And
it's streaming on Hulu. That's where I watched it.
Ah, cool.
But I noticed that Walmart is still selling.
Yes.
So I was looking at like steelbooks the other day through Walmart, which I never shop in Walmart, but I was like, well, I guess I have to now.
Yeah, I actually recently did that too with a steelbook, but Rob will yell at me or laugh at me for buying it. It was the Marvels. Got that on steelbook on 4K.
The Marvel? Wait, you got the last one? The last Marvels that came out?
Yeah.
Oh, from where?
From Walmart.
Huh.
They had it on. You can pre-order it.
Yeah, because look, as bad as that movie was, I have the steelbook of every Marvel's, MCU movie that came out.
Yeah.
And for me to stop is because it's only because I'm collecting them, not because the movie was great. So that's the only reason I would get it. Like if I could just buy the steel book and not the movie, sure.
Are those the movies that have the like metallic covers on them?
Correct.
Okay. My daughter just got like 5 or 6 of those for Christmas with all the Hayao Miyazaki movies on them. Well,
Oh,
not all of
nice.
them, but a good amount of them.
Yeah, that was actually a good collection they made. I didn't get it because it was not in 4K, but if it was in 4K, I would have had the whole thing. I actually have like in my collection, I think right now, like, I don't know, 200 or 300 steel books.
I don't want to be the one who has to dust those.
Well, they're in boxes right now.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one lifting those when he has to move into his new house, Lara.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yes. I had a friend of mine lift a few boxes and he was like, "What are in this?" And it's like movies.
All right. I think we kind of digressed a little bit, but it's pretty fun that we're actually going to be talking about this. Obviously, everybody, Akira 1988. We do have a synopsis, but we have several, but we have a long iterated one that I'd started that Lara completed. But I think we could go with Rob's Chat GPT.
I call him Chad.
Abbreviated.
Abbreviated version.
It's the synopsis footnotes.
Exactly. So who wants to tackle that one?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
Akira is a groundbreaking Japanese animated cyberpunk film released in 1988, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, adopted from his own manga series of the same name. Set in a dystopian version of Tokyo in the year 2019, story unfolds in the aftermath of a catastrophic event known as the Tokyo Explosion, which triggered World War III. The narrative follows Kaneda and Tetsuo, 2 members of a motorcycle gang, as they become entangled in a web of government conspiracy, secret experiments, and supernatural powers. As Tetsuo develops uncontrollable psychic abilities, the film delves into themes of power, corruption, and consequences of unchecked ambition. Akira is celebrated for its stunning animation, complex narrative, and influential impact on both Japanese and global cinema, solidifying its status as a cult classic in the realm of science fiction and animation.
Oh, I think the last sentence actually does describe it to some degree of the reason why it's a cult classic.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it kind of brought the art of anime to America too. I think this was one of the first popular animes to reach American shores.
They normally consider Akira like there's everything before Akira and everything after Akira.
That is true.
And Akira was basically, in 88, which the 80s is basically considered like the golden age of anime.
Yes.
So,
and on top of that, we had the late 70s, early 80s, which we had a lot of us that grew up on the East Coast, coming from my end. I remember Battle of the Planets. Do you remember that, Rob, too? Because we would have the Americanized version. It would be dubbed. It would be a team that looked like birds. You had white, blue, red, yellow.
The original title is called, I think it's Team Gatchaman or Ninja Gatchaman, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I used to love that show so much. I would come from school and I just had to plop myself in front of the TV to watch it all the time.
And then after that would be like Robotech at that point.
That was another one that I used to love too.
Same here. And those are the things that you would like go at the time in the early 80s when VCRs were a thing. that you would go and you say, "Hey, mom, or dad, I want to rent a movie," and it's like, "All right, you're allowed one movie," and then you go through the animated version. They would have an animated section for kids, but in that you would have these Japanese animated shows or VHSs, and that's what I would pick out. There was one that I was looking in particular that I remembered specifically, but I can't remember the name. And I was trying to look for it online through IMDb database, but I couldn't find it. The only other thing I could find was probably maybe MD Geist and the Guyver series, which they actually did put into a film adaptation with Mark Hamill in it and other people, and they did 2 movies.
The
But
Guyver, I remember that. That was actually pretty good. Well, the anime is pretty good.
the animated series, yes, that
Yeah.
you could still find that everybody. You can find it online. It's something I highly recommend too because I just like the idea of a battle suit. But now we have more animation that's out there that's prevalent that everybody loves, and then obviously, if my friend Juanita were here, she would be talking everything animated that comes from Japan because she just loves animation. She's actually going. She got press for some sort of Japanimation convention that's coming up soon, and she would just love talking about this stuff. But I remember Princess Mononoke and a whole bunch of other movies coming out after Akira that kind of moved on with the whole Japanese animation thing. Now, this was my first impression when I first saw this. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of ultra violence in this, and it's this particular movie for an animated Japanese film. The others weren't as prevalent, but this one you had nudity, you had blood, you had extreme violence.
Body horror.
Yeah, literally.
That's what I do remember years later, the just body horror of Tetsuo.
Yep. Yep. Very much. And they wound up eventually doing something later on, years later. Actually, within the 80s, it was still there. The movie, The Legend of Ricky O. And that had extreme Japanese or Chinese. It was a mix. And that had visual effects that were very much body horror, which Japan is mostly known for now. With if you look stuff up online and you see some wacky stuff that's out there, that's Japanese horror based. Uh,
Hmm.
but this was very unique in itself. It was very innovative for its time. The animation, in my opinion, was done very well. As far as the dubbing was concerned, it was kind of slightly off when it comes to the English dubbing. But if you watch the subtitled version, you're able to get a little bit more of the story. There's a lot more involved that is kind of missing on the English dub side.
Well, the dubbing part, I mean, they did it twice. One was in 89
Mhm.
when they dubbed it, and then the other one was in 2001. So they're different actors. That's why when I watch the 2001, it's kind of off. I feel like it's a little off because I feel like the 89 one was a little better. But I don't know for me. But I remember I saw the movie so much that I distinctly remember the voices back then, and I'm like, yeah, there's something off of this. But yeah, no. But what I would say is, Akira did something that was very interesting. One, it was, of course, a movie that defined Japanese animation, but also it was one of the costliest Japanese anime movies that Japan had at the time. And one of the things that it did very well was it was actually almost competing in the sense of, I would say, quality when it came to Disney at the time. So in some parts of the movie, they're actually drawn at 24 frames a second, while other parts are on 18 frames a second. But normally animation is always drawn at around maybe anywhere from 10 to 15 frames a second,
Yeah.
since you don't need that much motion. But yeah, with Akira, they went full blown. That's why sometimes it looks really smooth and just very beautiful
Oh yeah.
in certain scenes. So it's just a phenomenal movie, and that's what defined, I think, for America, Japanese animation was Akira is where it started.
Lara, your thoughts?
when you were talking about the shows you watched when you were younger, I think my first exposure to Japanese animation was Voltron, which I think everyone watched back
Yeah.
in the 80s and 90s. That's the first one. But I saw Akira at my college, my university theater. We had a theater on campus, and they played a lot of indie and alternative stuff. So that was probably like 1990 or something. So it had been out for a little while, but that's where I first saw Akira.
Mm.
And I loved it. In fact, before that, even in high school, I'd go to like the animation festivals they'd have back then. That was the first time I ever saw like The Simpsons and Beavis and Butthead. All those like very underground, cool, edgy cartoons ended up at those animation festivals. So I was excited to see Akira when it showed up at my college university theater. And after that, I was just hooked on anime. I didn't get to watch it all the time, but I loved watching movies like Ghost in the Shell and Vampire Hunter D after that.
Yep.
And right now, my daughter, who's 17, she is a huge anime fan. And I'd gotten out of it because, mom and life stuff just gets in the way of getting to watch things, but she's a fan of, she had me watch all of Attack on Titan with her, which is an amazing Japanese anime. She's also into like Demon Slayer and My Hero Academia and all the real popular animes that are out there for kids right now. So we're watching the live action of Avatar, and I just enjoy sitting here watching their rip it apart on Netflix.
We actually spoke about that last night when we had a Zoom call.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, that was my first exposure to it, and I've always loved Japanese culture. My daughter, I can tell, is my daughter because she loves Japanese culture even more than I do. And I just love their rich culture of appreciating animation and anime as like not just for children, because I think when Akira came to America back in the 80s, animation was just for kids. It wasn't considered something that adults had an appreciation for. And I think Japanese animation,
To this day, is still considered that way here in the United States.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're huge fans of Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki, and his movies, in my opinion, are works of art. I mean, they can be appreciated by all ages, but they definitely aren't just relegated to children. And
Right.
I just remember Akira. I hadn't seen it probably since I was in college, so it was a good 30 years or so. Well, I mean, I think I watched it again one time with my husband, somewhere in our 20s or something like that. But yeah, I watched it again, and I'm just like, yeah, the animation looked a little bit dated to me, just considering what I see nowadays, but still a great story and just really well animated for its time.
It's funny because I got exposed to Akira not when it first came out. I got exposed to Akira because of the bike from Kaneda.
Yes.
Which is now one of the most famous bikes in the world. And I saw that in a comic book shop. I saw this little tiny bike, and I was like, that's the coolest looking bike. So I went inside and I asked about it. And so I bought it. And I was just very intrigued about it. So I kept asking about, where did this bike come from? And it was like, oh, it's from the movie Akira. And so I went ahead and I said, all right, let me watch it. And I watched it through a VHS, and I thought it was a very good movie. I was very impressed, but I was so confused. And I'll admit, I was very confused, and I was like, all right, something just, I mean, it's great, but I don't know. It's not what I expect from Japanese anime when it comes to action and stuff like that. Because, again, you get used to Robotech, you get used to um, Battle of the Planets and things like that. And I thought it would just have more kind of what I would say cookie cutter action. And then Epic Comics, which no longer exists, came out with a series of the manga. So what they did, of course, as you guys know, Japanese manga is read from right to left, right? So what they did was they actually flipped it around and they colorized it. So it was actually like a beautiful series. And I think the original manga is like 6 volumes. This was like something like 30 different comic books because they took each volume and they still, they wanted to just make money out of it.
They added to it.
Yeah. But I got to read the entire manga, and I finally understood what the whole story was about. So if you really, I mean, the what's really I'm not gonna say bad, but what's missing about the movie Akira is that you are basically getting the first volume
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting the last volume. And a lot of the middle stuff is
Is missed.
kind of just kind of glanced over in the middle. And
Mhm.
if you're not familiar with the actual manga itself, it could get a little confusing for, especially for first time viewers of that movie.
It's
Mhm.
a 2 hour movie, a little bit over 2 hours, like just a hair over.
Right.
And honestly, for those listeners that are out there, we are Panels to Pixels, so we love the idea that you actually go in and read the comic. So if you have any interest and you've watched this before, you could easily get the trade paperback online. Or if
Yeah,
not,
they
you
still sell
go,
this.
yeah, and you could still go to Comixology and they will have it available too as well. But my history with it, as I was working in a recording studio, and I was talking to some kid that was interning at the time, and it was about 92, and we were talking about stuff we loved over our childhood, things of that nature. He was a little younger than I was, but he had mentioned Akira, and I'm like, oh, what's so interesting about this? He goes, well, if you can find it, rent it. And I did, but I was still within the whole Battle of the Planets, Lens of Voltron, all that stuff from the 80s that I knew. And then this was something he goes, no, this is a little bit more extreme. You're going to see a little bit more violence. You're going to see more adult oriented stuff. And I'm like, oh, kind of,
Boobs.
yeah, literally. Yeah, we do get a shot of those. But even still, it's not what the one thing I was looking for. But the thing was, is the fact is that it was a little bit more extreme of the violence within it. And that's kind of what attracted to me. And I said to him, I said, well, what are you talking about? Pretty much almost like the Dark Knight, Frank Miller, literally, because that's how Frank Miller and Watchmen came out in the mid 80s in comics. And that revolutionized the whole comic era at that point where people could be ultra violent at that point. And I never thought that would happen in animation. So I wound up renting it and watching it and going, oh my goodness, wow, they could do this. And it was very innovative. By that time, it was had its cult status at that point, and you could go to a convention and you could buy bootlegs and things of that nature. So it's one that still set up. The one thing that always grasped me to it was the iconic look of Kaneda walking to his bike, like you said, Rob. That poster of him walking to it with the big pill thing on the back of his red jacket, and he's got a whole red suit. That is so symbolic of the movie in a sense that when they re-released it on 4K Blu-ray and Blu-ray, that is the one image that everybody attributes to Akira when they see that. They see the bike.
Yeah. It's either that or it's the bike slide, which
Yes.
has now come out, I believe, in two different movies. The last one, it was actually Nope.
Really?
Yeah. So if you look at Nope, Kiki Palmer is on her bike and she's going towards. There's spoilers for those who haven't seen the movie, but she's going towards the rodeo and
Mhm.
she's going so fast, and all of a sudden she does a slide exactly. I mean, it was just like a frame to frame from the movie. And from later I read that Jordan Peele.
Jordan
Mhm.
Peele.
Yeah, Jordan Peele actually did that on purpose. He wanted to do kind of a tribute to Akira. So
Oh,
it was pretty
sweet.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. There is reference to it in certain movies, one of which that I do remember prominently within Ready Player One, because they
Hmm.
used a bike within the movie itself during a racing event. And I think
Right.
it's the bike that the girl is riding within Ready Player One.
Yeah, Artemis.
Yep. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the fact that they utilize the same techniques and everything within that particular movie. So it's legendary in that sense that it does influence more of pop culture or other movies or media at that point. So it shows that this is synonymous with a cult classic. It is a cult classic. So, but what I really did enjoy about the movie itself too is some of the there's this one repetitious percussive song or music that's throughout it, which is part of its soundtrack, which I
Right.
did enjoy. So I'm looking to see if I could find the soundtrack online, just like you normally do,
Oh, I
Rob.
found it. I mean, I found it, and I've heard the whole thing, and it is a fantastic, fantastic soundtrack. What's interesting, because yes, even though I did download it, I do own it. I just had like since I moved and I have a whole bunch of things in boxes, it is stuck somewhere where I don't know. But I do own the actual disc. But it is a fantastic, fantastic soundtrack. It's nothing like you would hear. It definitely doesn't have, the Americanized version of, what a soundtrack would be. And it definitely has a lot of old Japanese influences in different types of eras of Japanese culture, but fantastic. It is just a fantastic soundtrack.
Hmm. And apparently they had some games based upon the movie itself too.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, Tato had released an Akira adventure game for the Famicom, exclusively only in Japan, unfortunately. uh, but another Akira game for the Jaguar and Super NES, Genesis, and Sega CD was being developed but canceled, along with the prospects of another Akira title for the Game Boy and Game Gear and handheld consoles, according to Wikipedia. And Akira for Amiga and Amiga CD32 in 1994. To coincide with the DVD release in 2002, Bandai released Akira Psycho Ball, a pinball simulator for PlayStation 2. So it's had its moments where they tried to do video games. The movie itself has spawned some wanting it to be done in a live action format. The closest that we've gotten was Taika Waititi, who we all know from Thor: Love and Thunder and Thor: Ragnarok, and
We do in the shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows. Yep, a wonderful man himself, a New Zealander, a Kiwi, and he was pushing forward to it, but I guess the pandemic kind of ruined that. It was supposed to be in development by July in 2019 to come out in like 2021. But with the pandemic and everything, it just didn't happen. It's still in, what I say is developmental hell, like we always had. And as we've seen, which has come out of developmental hell, which we'll talk about later in the news, is The Crow, which Lara and I have covered here for 94, but we'll talk about that come news. But to get back to what we're talking about, which is Akira, within this particular movie, there are several moments in the movie that I do enjoy, but I want to know what scenes did you enjoy? What moments did you enjoy within the movie? So we'll start with you, Lara. Did you have any key moments within the movie that you enjoyed?
First of all, I think the the 80s feel of it really got me nostalgic. They're all dressed in very 80s clothing, kind of listening to 80s music at that school for delinquents that they're at. And probably one of my favorite scenes, I think all the scenes with the children, the espers, the little children with telekinetic and psychic powers are always fun.
Yes.
So when Tatsuo gets captured by the government and put in that room, he actually starts tripping out because they've got the giant teddy bear and the little car and everything, and they're using their powers to try to get to him. That's probably one of my favorite points in the movie. And then also the children at the end speaking to Akira and their like connection to Akira, and also trying to like use their powers to save Kamita from all that's happening at the climax. So basically, I love those weird little children that look like old people with psychic powers.
Excuse me.
Rob, did you have any that you kind of stand out that you probably would recommend for people to enjoy?
Yeah, I would
They haven't
say
seen
that
it?
the one of the highlights of this movie is the beginning of the movie when there's the motorcycle gang fight.
Yes.
And they are riding their bikes throughout the entire city. And one of the most beautiful parts about it is that you actually see the trail of their taillights, just like you would see through high-speed film.
Mhm.
So they did that beautifully, I think, and the colors and everything are just fantastic. The music that they have going also plays really well with those scenes. I mean, like I said, those scenes just look phenomenal, and I think all those scenes were actually filmed at 24 frames a second. That's why it looks really smooth and buttery. It's just a fantastic, fantastic shot. The other parts that I liked were some of the subtle things. So, like Lara, you mentioned the teddy bear that was assembling in Tetsuo's room, and one of the things I loved about that is the amount of detail that they put in the teddy bear. From all the materials that it was assembling. They really, really went all out on that.
Mm.
And plus, there's the scene again, as everybody knows, this is a spoiler. Uh, there's a lot of spoilers here, but there's a scene where Tetsuo's arm gets lasered off, and what he does is he creates a cybernetic arm out of like just flesh and metal and all these things.
Mhm.
And the amount of detail that you see, like you see all the wires start to connect, you see all the um pieces start to make like this artificial muscles and everything. And I was like, wow, they really went all out when it comes to that. So me being an artist, those are the things that I look for is those little details. Even when I would say like I remember the one of the tanks, on the streets. One of the soldiers just sitting on top of the tank, but all the details on the tank, all the lines, everything on it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's an artist. That's an artist that just did every bit of line and stuff like that. So I remember collecting a book that's on the art of Akira, and it has so many of those things in there that I was like, wow, I really got to bring up my game when it comes to artwork, the way they're doing things. But yeah, it's fantastic. Those are the scenes that I like, are those type of scenes, and I like also the fact that Akira was one of the very few movies that try to stick to certain real scientific uh, things. So one of them being when Tetsuo goes up into orbit.
Mhm.
If you notice, when they do that scene, there's hardly any sound whatsoever because there is no sound in space. So that was one of those things that I thought it was like, oh, that's a cool detail there, and they respected that.
Hmm.
And it just made it a lot more authentic. So yeah, those are my takes on it.
When you mentioned about the artwork and detail put into it, I really wonder if it's unique to Japan or if any other Japanese animation actually have the artist of the manga be the director of the film.
That's a
'Cause,
rare thing, isn't it? Because the fact that you
yeah,
had the actual creator all of a sudden became the director and the art director and all that stuff, that's I think what made it. Well, I mean, look, Japanese animation, depending on what it is. So like if you look like a great example, if you look at like Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell
Mhm.
is another beautifully done movie, but when you look at the artwork and a lot of the things, even Macross, which is what they call it,
There's Robotech Macross.
is Robotech. Yeah. So when you look, I collect art books and I collect some of these Japanese animation movies. And when you look at the detail, the amount of detail they put into things, it's insane compared to what American animation companies do, which is get it in, get it out, and do it at the cheapest budget you could possibly do it. So yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I would recommend anybody who's really into that kind of artwork, look at the behind the scenes artwork for a lot of these animated movies, and you will see so much beautiful detail that they do, and the amount of work that they do and concept work that they do just to get one scene that probably comes out for like 5 seconds is incredible.
It's the love and affection for the actual animation to pay tribute to the source material, I think.
Right.
And I think they wanted to get that across. And like you, I noticed that too. That was the one thing I loved is how textured it was with certain scenes, especially with the battle movement when Tetsuo was dealing with the army at that point. That whole big battle scene in the city, and then you could see it. And they have like a kind of what would be a crane camera technique to come down, and then you do
Right.
see the whole thing of the tank, and I did enjoy that, but also in the length of what they did within each character in certain scenes, whether it be within the bar scene in the very beginning, all the way to the cycle scenes and the battle scene at the very end between Tetsuo and Kaneda, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed those. The one thing that I really did appreciate, because this is a Japanese based animation. So basically, I liked how they have a sense of culture in it, and then how they were painting the whole thing about Akira in the streets, and when the government comes in, and then the people were talking about Akira itself. But the fact is that you have that Asian culture involvement in it. It's not set alone where it could be like, oh yeah, it's based in Tokyo. Because if you look at a lot of the characters, a lot of them are Asian based. But if you look at some of the characters, they look a lot of like Caucasian. And I don't know if it's something within the animators they were trying to integrate that to make it more universal, but it kind of worked in the sense of when they showed the chanting, they had the Japanese monks that were there, and
Right.
then yeah, and they were doing
And
that.
in the manga, there's a lot more to that itself. I mean, there's huge sections that explains on why is it that Akira all of a sudden became like this deity type of figure, which the movie really didn't cover as much.
Mm,
But yeah, no, I think the thing is that like anime in the 80s did not really define itself. If you ever look at the anime that came out in the 80s, it does not have that typical in some of the really good ones. It didn't have that typical look that it has now where it definitely looks like anime and it has the big eyes with all the, all the reflections in the eyes and stuff like that. Um Akira really didn't do that. Akira, is still a beautifully made movie, but things like Akira, Grave of the Fireflies, the Miyazaki movies, they never have the typical anime look, which is, big heads, big eyes, little tiny mouth, barely a nose, that kind of stuff, it's just beautifully drawn in their own way. And some of that, and the great thing about anime in the 80s is that they were experimenting a lot, and they were not really making anime for certain kind of groups or trying to appease anybody. They were just experimenting with things, and for them, it was working. So it's very interesting the way this movie and some other movies that came out during the 80s, when you watch them, you say to yourself, very little at the time it was very advanced, but you can still appreciate them now because of that.
very true.
Yeah, when you're talking about the chanting and everything going on, that to me, I haven't read the comics or the manga, so I kind of felt that that was indicative of a lot of the tropes of sort of 80s and even now dystopian films where there's obviously a fear of nuclear annihilation because of the bomb going off at the very beginning of the movie, but also this distrust of government organizations and the rise of religious zealotry and
Yes.
just this whole abuse of uncontrollable power, this is a dystopian film, so it has a lot of those dystopian tropes to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
one thing people don't realize is that even though the movie is called Akira, the actual character of Akira really doesn't show up except in some scenes like, oh, yeah, that was Akira, and they show like, a kid or something, but in the manga, there is a huge section of, hey, there is a character named Akira, and he's there for almost the whole thing. So, and in the anime, that's why when I saw it, I was like, so where is this Akira person?
It was kind of if we look at the very end of the movie, it's all those test tubes that they found in the vault that was kind of all
Right.
broken up, and it looked like vertebrae and brains and everything else that was all
But in
mushed.
the manga, he's not dissected. In the manga, they just keep him in that freezer
Yeah,
because they're so afraid of the power that he has. So when he finally does break out, he breaks out. It's a little boy.
Yeah.
Here, I remember it was like, wait a minute, that's a whole bunch of vials.
yeah. Well, you have to
We do
also
see Akira for just a few seconds at the end when
Right.
he's speaking
Yes.
to the children.
yeah, and you have to realize too that this is an adaptation, so through adaptation we kind of lose a lot of what's in the original format, which why why I like to always reference everybody and the listeners to go to the original source material. So I just like the idea that you could actually read the source material, appreciate for what it is. If this was your first introduction to it, some people would love that, and then read the source material and go, "Oh, I like the adaptation." People have a mismatched kind of way of appreciating things. I've known people where they've were only introduced to like the adaptation of something, and then they read the source material and go, "I prefer the source material. Thank you," and then I
Right.
thank them. And sometimes that just doesn't happen, and you get the true purists that are out there saying, "Oh, I want to see Marvel Secret Wars from 1984 be put on film and exactly as it was." It's not going to happen with the way the MCU works. So
Well, it doesn't
appreciate
happen.
what you
It doesn't
have.
happen with a lot of, properties that all of a sudden have to go into. What people don't realize is that when you have something that's so rich with so much detail,
Mm,
and yet you're trying to put all that into a movie format or a limited, run of 8 episodes, you got to pick and choose the things that will make sense.
yeah.
So I know that Larry, you were talking about the last Avatar and how your daughter was picking it apart. I remember when seeing the last Avatar, beautifully done, and when I saw when I saw the M Night Shyamalan, I think it was like an atrocious thing. But when the Netflix one came out, I was like, okay, you know what? There's some things that it doesn't capture the way any animated movie does, but the spirit of it is still there.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people that they want exactly what they got from the cartoons, and it's like that's going to be impossible to do.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just you cannot do it, especially because in cartooning, a lot of the expression and a lot of the emotions are shown in the characters' faces in a very distorted way that makes sense. And for a
Mhm.
human being, you can't do that. And if you do, then it looks cartoony and stupid because now you got to, do some kind of CGI version. The best example of that is The Lion King. So The Lion King, of course, the Disney animated film, beautifully done, very cool character expressions. But then all of a sudden, when Jon Favreau did The Lion King live action, even though it made money, it felt soulless because the animals did not have that human expression the way you did in the film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's the problem. It's like sometimes like, oh, we want what's the on the
Yeah.
cartoon or the anime, and it's like when you put it into live action, oh well, it's not, it's garbage and all this stuff, and it's like, what do you expect?
I think the
But
funniest thing about that is that they tried to make the look almost identical to the cartoon. So when you
right,
see some of the costumes and the wigs, they almost look ridiculous because they look so much like the cartoons. It
they
just
do.
feels like uncanny valley.
Some people have actually described it as it just looks like a film with a whole bunch of people cosplaying.
Yes, that's exactly how we felt about it. And I am not as obsessive about The Last Airbender as she is, so I am just enjoying it for what it is. But she's
Yeah,
upset that they're combining 2 or 3 stories in one episode and you don't
right.
get the fleshed out version. And I'm like, well, if people want that, they should just go watch the cartoon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why when I heard about, oh, they want to do Akira into live action, the first thing was I remember when they were thinking about having Leonardo DiCaprio play either Tetsuo or Kaneda, and right away they started saying, "Oh, they're whitewashing Akira." Um, but you start thinking about it, and it's like, can it be done? Possibly, because Akira is not a movie where the characters seem way too out of the ordinary. It's not like Aang, where Aang's facial expressions and his childlike way of being, really cool in the anime cannot translate very well to live action. I think with Akira, things can probably be done, it's just trying to capture the spirit of that movie, which would be very hard, or they would have to do something slightly different that can still work and hopefully translates the right way. It's like the same thing with Dune. People always said Dune is an impossible story to put on film. Well, they just made 2 films that are fantastic, and they did change certain things,
Hmm.
but most of it is still there. So I don't know. It's something to look after, but yes, like you said, it's been in development hell for a long time, and
Oh
who
yeah.
knows what's going to happen.
Well, when you mentioned whitewash, the first thing that I thought of and remembered was Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell from 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which I was going to bring up because the director who did that movie is doing The Crow.
Oh, jeez.
Of course.
Uh,
That movie, and funny enough, like when I saw Ghost in the Shell, I was like, they got some scenes that were like just straight out of the anime, which was pretty cool.
yeah.
But just Scarlett Johansson should have never played that part.
No, they could have done something better, That we've had movies that were post-apocalyptic or kind of cyberpunkian back in the day. If you remember Keanu Reeves with Johnny
Johnny Mnemonic.
Mnemonic. Yep. I love that. That was a good way, but that was based upon a short story, I believe, back in the day. And I thought that was done well. Now, mind you, honestly, if you look at Keanu Reeves, he is Asian. So,
Part Asian.
part
Part
Asian.
His father
Okay.
is Japanese Hawaiian.
Yeah, I knew he had a little bit of Samoan in him. And,
Japanese Hawaiian, not Samoan.
okay. All right. I got to get it right. Sorry. I don't want to get blacklisted.
It's not the same thing.
No.
But he has Asian blood in him, which is amazing. And we wouldn't have John Wick. But it worked out for that particular film, and that became very popular and something that eventually I'll be covering on Adrenaline Cinema podcast because I just love that whole cyberpunk element within that. And we've had other films since then too.
Right.
The Japanese animation has made its like points in the world. People there, it has its own following. Like I said, my friend Juanita follows this stuff online, and she just watches this stuff religiously, constantly. I try to get her into podcasting. She doesn't do it, but she just tweets, and then she has her own little journal that she does and blogging. But now she's going to a convention. But it has its own following, just like with my love for Godzilla that Rob laughs at because it's all Toho and all that stuff. It's kind of gimmicky and it's kind of
They
goofy.
there were some movies that worked. It's just that at some point it just looks very silly.
It does. I
You
do
know,
agree. I do admit it, and that's the whole thing. And the whole point of my love and affection for that is literally because it just reminds me of my childhood.
Well, yeah,
loving
no,
that.
of course.
But we never really did cover Godzilla -1. But I don't think we will. But I'll leave that up to Rob when he comes back with his podcast. If he wants to do it.
Well, like I said, after watching it and criticizing it, and then just hearing all the praises for it, I was like, what am I missing? What
Well,
did I miss out of it? And I was like, well, I'm gonna have to rewatch this again with fresh eyes just to see
Yeah.
what it, because the fact that it won an
Well-
Oscar for the best special effects when the creator, I think, had way better effects. And the other contender there also was Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I'm like, no,
Well,
no.
yeah, we've discussed this, and even
Yeah.
me saying it won for best effects. What, for
Yeah.
Japanese effects? Because it was a low budget film for Japan. And I'm
Right.
like, when you told me, I was like, I didn't watch the Oscars, so I'm like, okay, I don't understand that. Because I understand it for the fact of I know how low budgeted film these Godzilla films are. So it's either A, it was a hand to saying, hey, because you're a foreign film, you're Asian film, we're gonna hand this out to you, or maybe because of legacy and Godzilla never got an Academy Award.
Well,
So maybe
I
they
would be
just got
I
this
would be
one.
careful with what you're saying because you're gonna have listeners saying, "Oh, it deserved it." Are you saying that
Honestly, hey, I'll say I did appreciate it for being a Godzilla fan. There were certain points that I did appreciate, but there's some stuff that I didn't like, just along with Rob. But when we come to that conversation, we'll talk about that at that
Yeah,
conversation.
we will.
I haven't seen it yet, so I still don't know.
I would say check it out, but don't think of it as a
Don't get my hopes up.
masterpiece. Don't think of it as a masterpiece.
I would say check it out and just give us your opinion afterwards because
Oh yeah.
don't be influenced by what any of us say. It is one of the most different Godzillas that they have ever made,
Yes.
and it probably does have some of the most emotional and very well developed characters than any other ones ever made. I just felt that there was certain little things that could have tweaked that probably would have made it better for me.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
that being said, I would say watch it and just give us your opinion when you see it.
Cool. Yeah, my
All
whole
right.
family has enjoyed the Monarch series of monsters, but we haven't seen that one yet, so I'm sure we'll like it.
That's good. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Although it does do so, if you've seen all the other Godzilla movies, you'll ask yourself like, there's certain things that you'll ask yourself, wait a minute, but that's not in the movies. So I'm hoping that the new movie will answer some of the retconning that they did
Mhm.
through the I don't know if it's a retcon or they're going to come up with some kind of explanation.
Or one-off, and it'll just be a one-off movie
Right.
like they did before. All right, I think we digressed a little bit, but let's go into like some interesting facts about the movie. I posted a bunch in our document, but you could pick and choose what you will. So, Lara, were you able to peruse the doc and find anything that you like that you could actually speak about?
Let me see. I'll choose this one. This Japanese film was made in American style. When it comes to anime films, the Japanese studios usually prefer to draw first, then animate, and do the voice work after. However, Akira did things in reverse. Like many American animated films, the voice was done first, followed by the animation, the adding of the VFX and other special effects, and the final editing. Similarly, even the film's soundtrack was completed before the composers even read the script. As a result, parts of the music had to be edited to fit certain sequences in the film. Moreover, over 160,000 single pictures were used to create the animation, which was double or triple the norm of that time. Which kind of goes to what you said, Rob, that the manga wasn't even finished before the film was finished. So
Right,
they put the
exactly.
cart before the horse.
But it influenced the ending of the manga, which is, like I said, so basically the movie and the manga are really one entity. Not like, hey, the movie's a version of the manga. That is true, but the movie also inspired a lot of the things that happen towards the end of the manga, which the manga ended in I think in 1990, 91 or something like that.
Hmm. Rob, is there anything in there that you would choose?
In here, there's something interesting about one of the biker gangs in the film. So the jackets that they have has capsules in the back, like the drawing of a capsule.
Hmm.
And so the motto on it says "for good health and bad education," which I really like. But when translated to Japanese, it forms a rhyming phrase as follows: Kenko ni yadusu, kaiko ni waridusu. So I guess the Japanese version of it is supposed to, kind of rhyme, but the translation is still pretty cool, but it just doesn't rhyme. But it's just one of those little things where it's like, well, different languages mean different things, but I kind of like that part of it.
Hmm. The only thing I could take away would be the fact that it actually sneaks in some references for Western culture. So, as with other genres and like cyberpunk sci-fi films often refer to each other, and there's a special pleasure that comes from spotting all the references and connections, which we do within this movie. For instance, there's a scene where Kaneda is at the jukebox, and if you look very closely, you'll notice the logos of three popular rock bands: Led Zeppelin, The Doors, and Cream. Plus, Tetsuo's body was being scanned. The computer sounds that were produced in the background were in fact taken from Mother, computer from the sci-fi flick Alien from 1979.
I thought this was an interesting one. Akira even predicted the Olympics correctly because I went back and Googled when the Olympics were in Tokyo to see if it was around that time. It's not around the time of the movie was made, but it is around the time that the movie is set because it says it's always entertaining when a film or a television show unconsciously foreshadows or predicts an event in the future. When Akira correctly predicted that the 2020 Summer Olympics would be held in Tokyo, it blew a lot of people's minds. The film features scenes where there is a new Olympic stadium being built to host the games in Neo Tokyo. Well, at least we can be grateful that our Tokyo is nowhere near as dystopian as the one we saw on screen. So I thought that was interesting that the movie came out in the late 80s, but the Tokyo Olympics were hosted in 2020, and the film takes place, I think the bombing takes place in 2019.
Yeah, I was only off by a year.
Another thing that I just noted myself, I put it in my notes and didn't even mention it, is that I went to see when the movie was made, which was 1988,
Mhm.
and there's scenes in there that completely reminded me because I was a high schooler at the time that this happened of the massacre in Tiananmen Square in China, where they
Yeah.
attacked the student protesters with tanks and guns and everything like that, and that was very similar to one of the scenes in Akira.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
One of the things I thought was pretty cool is the fact that when you look at the aesthetics of it, Blade Runner and Akira have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So just again, just when you look at it, just that dystopian part of it, the way, things have changed in the future. I mean, like I know Blade Runner has more flying vehicles and things like that, and they have replicants. Uh, but it's still, the cyberpunk look is still there, and I think Blade Runner came out first, but somehow rubbed off on this film in a certain way, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing was the fact that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg did not think this movie could be marketable here in the United States. Two people who have made science fiction movies, some of the best science fiction movies in the world, even they thought, yeah, not going to work here.
All right. Well, I think that's about all we've discussed. Things that interested us, what we liked about the movie, interesting unknown facts. I guess we can move on to to kind of comic news or comic adaptation news, because there's been a lot going on since we have not been podcasting. So I want to talk about things that have been going on in the MCU. So obviously, within the MCU, we know that Daredevil Reborn is back into production. And on top of that, we got Eldon Hansen and Deborah Ann Wall coming back as Foggy Nelson. And Deborah's playing Karen Page again. So we got the Netflix originals back for Daredevil. And
Well, they had to do that. The fact that they actually try to start a series and did not include those characters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, Kevin Feige went back in there and went, wait a minute, stop. What made it in Netflix really good? You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm glad that they stopped it and they had to redo it again and include those characters in there.
Yeah, they had to retool and give us back what we wanted, which is the heart of the show. The original Netflix shows, those two were the heartbeat of the show, in my opinion. And I think Charlie Cox actually mentioned that in an interview recently. Also in MCU news, as we all know, Jonathan Majors is no longer Kang the Conqueror. He got fired and dismissed by Disney. So Kang is no longer the big bad, according to the MCU, and what's going to be happening, we don't know, because a lot of certain movies that were in play, Ironheart and things of that nature, might be on the shelving committee. It might be shelved completely, whereas they're retooling and figuring out Secret Wars and oncoming movies that are going out there. People that could possibly replace Jonathan Majors as Kang, because they would still need that particular character within the MCU with alternate versions. Coleman Domingo, who we all know from Fear the Walking Dead, is a possible candidate. Now, mind you, he has dismissed it, and he said his people were approached by Marvel, but he has not confirmed yet or denied anything that it was that particular character. So things are still out there in the world. I personally can see him as that particular character if they do it with a African American person, and I think he would give it a little bit more of a flair. But who knows? And we'll find out what happens. I'm still looking forward to the idea that we do get Doctor Doom. I'm looking for that to be the true baddie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe come.
Well, I think they have no choice, because Kang is, first of all, I don't know what made them think that Kang would have been the great next thing after Thanos. I really
Next
don't.
big boss. No.
Yeah, it's just like Thanos is really hard to beat. And the only thing that could beat that are two other characters. It's either
Beyonder?
No, it's Doctor Doom or Galactus.
Oh, okay.
Those are or Apocalypse done the right way.
Oh yeah, done the right way.
So,
yeah.
So those are the only three characters that I could see that is like, okay, that can be a major event. But Kang? No.
And to continue on, principal production for Deadpool Wolverine, or Wolverine Deadpool, I don't know exactly how they're wording it, that is finished. So they've done all physical and practical filming. So everything is leading up to our release coming in, I think, in what, July, Rob?
I think so, something like that. But I'll tell you this much. I mean, that trailer was off the hook.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait for us to cover it. But for the fact that he deadpans and breaks the fourth wall, even in the even in the trailer itself, saying it's like, is Disney ready for this? Being pegged. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. We already know that they're all pushing for this R rating that's going out there. It would be the first official R-rated Disney Plus movie or Disney Plus Marvel film that's out there. But the thing is that they kind of segued into that, and they stated recently that Echo was the first one that was on Disney Plus, which it wasn't, honestly. If you listeners remember when Steve and I covered Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye, both were extremely violent for its time, and you still had to use your password to access those particular shows. And I think they were ramping up, and Echo is the premiere at that point where they were trying to get to that.
Echo was not that violent. I
Netflix.
mean, it was a little violent, but Echo was still bad. Bad, Netflix series. It wasn't that great.
It was
I
interesting.
haven't seen it, but I don't think anyone got their head slammed in a door until it decapitated them.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. But, when you got Wyatt Russell smacking somebody with a shield and blood splattering on a Captain America shield and Falcon and a Winter Soldier up in the screenshot, that tells you right there. Yeah, this ain't your regular Marvel for
It's a
kids.
Disney level R.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I said,
It's a little R.
it's a little R. But when as soon as like Deadpool Wolverine comes into play into the theaters, Mr. Reynolds is gonna bring the filthy. And when he does, I want to see it.
I was gonna say you got to remember the Deadpool movies are also very raunchy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Rated R kind of stuff, and I mean some of the stuff you see, you sit there and you go, I can't believe they allowed them to do that.
Yeah.
So the fact that are they on Disney Plus, the Deadpool movies? No,
Yes,
not
they
yet.
are.
They are?
They are. And they're rated R, so you could watch them. You just have to put in that code. So if you're a family, you have to put in that code to watch the R-rated version, like I did, because my niece had messaged me. She goes, Uncle Mark, how do I have access to this? Because she's on my account.
Right.
And I said, well, did you put in that you're over 18? She goes, oh, no. So she did. And she put in thing. She goes, I have to put in this stupid code every time I want to watch these films. I'm like, yeah.
Or lie about your age, kid.
Well,
yeah. Well, when that first happened, they asked you, it's like, okay, do you want access all the time to rated R stuff? And if you say yes, you don't have to put in a code. But if you say no, then I think that's when the code comes in for,
yeah.
So you can limit what your children actually watch.
Yep. And
plus, I think Jessica Jones is on there, right?
Yeah, Jessica
Jones. There's a lot of sex going on in that.
Defenders. They supposedly in the very beginning when they first came out, when they moved the Netflix shows over, they kind of edited out certain things and people noticed. And me being one of a Blu-ray owner of Jessica Jones, the first 2 seasons, actually all 3 seasons, and Daredevil and Luke Cage, I looked into it, and yeah, they did edit out, and then later on they put them back in. So,
okay.
So they went back and said, all right, well, we can't fool these people. But I think it's pretty cool for the fact, but this is also something coming from Rob and myself. That's why physical media comes really into play at this point.
I'm telling you, if you're a fan of movies, continue getting physical media. That's what I say.
Yeah, put them in business. But also, to add on, we kind of hinted it at before, and Lara and I did cover The Crow 1994, right? On Panels to Pixels podcast. Yeah. It's coming up on, technically it's on its 30th anniversary, if you think about it, Lara. But now we got one of the Skaz gods actually playing the Riddler, the Joker version of The Crow, if you think about it, with
or
the
Hot Topic version, The Crow.
Well, it's so funny too, when The Crow came out in 1994, guess what Hot Topic was doing? They were promoting The Crow.
Oh yeah.
If you recall. But it worked in that sense, in the fact that in 1994, doom gloom metal bands were the big thing. Typo Negative was a huge gothic band at that time. You still had thrash metal and things of that, and even The Cure was still relevant on that particular soundtrack. So you had Pantera, The Cure. The soundtrack for the original Crow is synonymous with the actual movie. It's very legendary. Rob and I and Frank and Adam and I were all talking last night regarding this. It's a good movie, but is it the original 94 version? I still feel it. It was a good movie, good action movie, but it gained its success and popularity and legacy through Brandon Lee's death. But was it true? And then you and I had broached this about when we talked about the original 94 movie, about how it applied to the original source material, which was far darker, and that we didn't get all that stuff. And now we're getting a Skarsgård, and I look at that trailer now, and my attitude is like, okay, they're trying to recapture what they had in 94 with this Skarsgård kid. And what I really wanted, and when Momoa was really involved in it, I was hoping that we would get the psychotic Eric Draven who would cut his hands and everything else and go a little crazy. Get that
Well, we still don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, you know how trailers are. Sometimes trailers don't give us the whole story, and sometimes they give us too much story.
I'll watch it, and I'm anticipating to see what we get, but am I hopeful for it? I'm not sure, and we will probably cover it because we already covered the original. Like I said, I still love the original for what it was based upon the whole look of it and the way they were able to achieve it. That was cinematic genius, and how they were able to do that after he passed away. Honestly, he had like his stuntman do all the work, and then they just superimposed certain previous shot scenes at that point.
Well, that after his death, because he was doing still a lot of the especially the fight scenes.
Yes.
Brandon Lee was doing those himself, but it was just after his death, then they had to use a body double and do that.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to, but that's something that came out recently, everybody. So we look forward to what your thoughts are too. So just let us know. And then when we cover it, you could tell us your thoughts on the new particular film. We highly recommend that you go back and listen to our coverage when the original 1994 version of The Crow. And that was done, I would say, what was 2 years ago that we did that, I think.
I think if people haven't seen the original movie or read the comic, they would probably like it. It feels a little John Wick as a goth kid to me. Not even a goth kid, kind of like a street kid. But I loved the 90s version so much because it captured that whole dark goth feel of the comic book. Yeah. Because that had a very dark gothic feel. And I was a goth girl back in high school. And so it was the 90s, and it captured that whole dark grunge industrial feel in it. I don't think that this movie has that same feel, but that's not what is in the culture now. So maybe it's trying to capture the dark grittiness of 2024 as opposed to 1994.
Yeah.
Well, the whole goth movement, has gone away so much that they have to now make it relatable to people. Whatever group is out there, whatever edgy group is out there right now.
Yeah.
So I was telling Mark yesterday, and I caught some slack for it because I was like, again, I think it's a really good movie. I enjoy watching it. It has a really great soundtrack, I think.
Yeah.
But would that movie be as memorable as it was if it wasn't for Brandon Lee's death? Because if Brandon Lee was still alive, it would just be another movie, another B movie that got made, and that's it. And people would have been like, oh, okay, it's a cool movie. But I think the whole thing with him dying on set, just like his father died on a set too, and everything, made that movie much more of a big cult classic because of it. And of course, it was his last work. So that's why people feel like, oh, it's heresy to, try to do another movie without Brandon Lee and stuff like that. It's like, first of all, The Crow didn't belong to Brandon Lee.
No.
That's not his creation.
That was Obar's creation. But also, if you looked at Jason Momoa, he actually looked pretty cool as Eric Draven, I thought, when they were in production.
But he was doing it way too much like Brandon Lee. So Brandon Lee brought his own style to it and his own way of doing it. I just think that, they have to change with the times. But like we saw the trailer yesterday, and as we were watching it, if somebody said, hey, this is just a movie called, I don't know, something else, it doesn't look like The Crow.
Yeah, I know.
Right. So but we'll
I
see.
like Peter Skarsgård, or not Peter. I like Bill Skarsgård. He's probably my favorite Skarsgård. Like I said, I'm going to watch it for his abs. I mean, I like him a lot. I've liked a lot of the stuff he's done in the past, and I like The Crow, so I'm going to hope it does well. I don't imagine it's going to be like the original one, but I'm still hoping it does well.
Listen, I found out that there's 8 Skarsgård. I was like, wow, this guy did not stop. He has 8 children and all in the business. So, which is crazy. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, we went through a whole thing about that. That was so funny too. The funny too, as I was just looking up, I couldn't remember what I could have conceived of Jason Momoa other than Aquaman too. Because did you guys see that? That came out, that came and went. But did you
Aquaman
guys?
2? Oh,
Yeah.
I went to see it in the theaters, and
Why?
you know why? I tell you why. Because it was the last movie. It was the last Zack Snyderverse movie,
Yeah, I know.
and I just wanted to see how it was gonna, how much more in flames this thing was gonna go,
Yeah.
right? And it wasn't as bad as I thought. It's not like what was the one before that? That was
Oh.
just
Justice League?
No, the Snyderverse, and then it was something else.
so.
Oh
Oh
no,
well,
Blue Beetle.
what was a Flash, Blue Beetle, and then
No.
was there something else between Blue Beetle and Aquaman?
I can't remember.
Did Shazam come in
Oh
there
yeah,
somewhere?
Shazam 2.
Shazam
Well,
2?
Shazam 2 was in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely horrible. The Flash was okay. I mean, for
That
me,
was
it was,
Batman Part 2.
yeah. There was segments of it that were really good, and then there are other segments that you're like, no, it's bad. And then to me, Blue Beetle was actually a surprise. I mean, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it did not. At that point, people were just like, yeah, I'm not investing myself in this. But I wanted to see. I mean, it just seems like, Jason Momoa just decided, listen, this is the last time I'm doing this. I'm just going to have fun with this guy.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. He just looked like he was having fun on set. He just like, I could give a crap how accurate this thing is or whatever it is. So
Yeah, they're just waiting for him to come back and James Gunn saying, "Hey, do you want to be Lobo?"
well, they already approached him about that. So
It would be perfect for him to play Lobo, in my opinion.
I think he is going to play because he did a video where he was just in talks. He was in talks with Warner Brothers, and as he was leaving the building, he was recording himself, and he just said, "I just left Warner Brothers, and man, there's some surprises for you." And he started screaming and yelling, being happy and stuff like that. And everybody thinks it's like, yeah, he's going to be doing Lobo.
All right, well, that's about it for news, but I just want to keep all your listeners informed of what's going on. Yes, we took a break.
Pedro Pascal is going to be Mr. Fantastic. So,
oh yeah, we forgot about that too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four has been cast as well. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to a lot of the other projects coming out, but we will keep you apprised as we continue on. We took a little bit of a hiatus, a little bit of time, but a little over 2.5 months since I put out a podcast. We started What If, didn't really finish it up at all, or even I think we got about 3 episodes in. But what we'll do is what Jamie and I are going to be starting to be covering Invincible next week. So check that out when it does. We're going to do that episodically every week. The new episode's out, so please send in feedback if you can. With Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, Lara and I will be doing Interview with the Vampire, hopefully with our friend Rima and Danny, and we'll talk about the movie before in May when season 2 comes out on AMC Plus, and then we're going to cover that episodically as well. So check that out. And then obviously X-Men 97 is coming out, so we'll be covering that as well. Hopefully episodically. Just do a little shorts because it is a cartoon. Or animated, I should say, not cartoon. We'll be covering that as well. Steve and I will probably do a version of Echo, like our just a whole season, just talk about the whole series that came out for Echo and in general, and what we think how it will affect the MCU itself. And then beyond that, whatever comes our way as usual. So keep in touch and let us know. But with that, to send in your feedback, or where you could listen to us. We can be heard on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or whatever podcast player of choice. You can find us on Facebook. All you have to do is go to facebook.com/panels to pixels. We can be found on YouTube. All you have to do is search for Panels to Pixels podcast. Don't just search for Panels to Pixels because you get Josh. And I know he's prettier than I am and has nicer hair. But
that he does.
Yeah, he does. So I do appreciate Josh, and I love what his work is too. But follow us there, and cue people into it, because that's another way to listen to the podcast as well. We can be found on Instagram at Panels to Pixels Podcast, or you could just email us, panelstopixels1@gmail.com. Panels 2 is spelled out TO, pixels and the number 1@gmail.com. Just send in your feedback that way. You could text, write a standard email, or just record yourself and send it as an attachment. You could be on here as well as somebody. You could be heard as well, your voice. So with that, where can listeners hear you guys? Rob?
Well, you could listen to me on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. We've been on hiatus for a while. We were supposed to be back like 2 weeks ago or something like that. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, life events got in the way. One of them is that I've been trying to buy a house, and I didn't realize how stressful and time consuming that could be. So much so that I just couldn't devote time to the podcast because it's just been very consuming. Plus, some other stuff. But we will be back, and the format will change slightly, I say for the better. And I think we're going to be on YouTube, which is going to be great for that. And when we're talking about YouTube videos, so they'll be able to see my ugly mug and everybody else's ugly mug too. But it should be fun. And for those who never heard the podcast, what we do is we cover failed big budget movies that were overhyped, and we try to make it better ourselves by giving our own take on it for that. And sometimes we will do a top 5 or top 10 on whatever movie genre, movie subject there is. And then we also started a section on honoring movie composers, and kind of sampling some of their best work that they have done. But that's it.
Lara, obviously people could hear you on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast when we come back for an interview with the vampire, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you, Danny, and I did a quick recap of season 1. We'll be back for the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise movie, and then the second season episode by episode. I don't usually do consistent podcast. I usually guest podcast, but you could go back and listen to Steve and I cover the second season of The Witcher, and we never quite got back to the third because I couldn't find another partner, but maybe someday it'll happen.
Yeah, and on top of that, you might be heard on when we do Sandman Cast on Podcastica when that comes back, and Jamie and I. So, because we're getting a second season on that as well. So, you'll hear a lot more from Lara in time, when she's able to come on, and obviously for Interview with the Vampire. So, obviously, you could hear me here in Panels to Pixels podcast as always, and Adrenaline Cinema Podcast as well, sometimes on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, and occasionally on Podcastica when I'm asked on. I think the last thing I did on Podcastica was the Buffyverse podcast. I just love doing that, and I surprise Penny with my picks of when I come on every season that they do. So I only did the second and third season. I'm waiting for the fourth to make my pick again. I don't want to be a continual guest. I like to let other people join in and have the fun. And I am also a Buffy fan too. Everybody, I know it's kind of funny, but it's fun. But with that, that is our episode. And I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
I'm Lara.
And I'm Rob.
Same podcast, different panel, different pixel. This was Panels to Pixels podcast. And we'll see you on the next panel. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.